we want to kind of know what's going on both on the hardware side as well as the services side of things out in China. Specifically, on the hardware side of things, it is, on the competitive side of things, what does that look like to them? What does the demand picture look like as far as the iPhone 15 is concerned? And then also, on the other side of things, they are launching kind of the new Macs out there. That should help them here in the December quarter as well. We do think that they are going to return to growth on the Mac side of things in the December quarter. That should help a little bit. And then as far as services, I think it'll be important for them to continue to say that, the landscape looks fairly healthy in China as far as services is concerned. But, at the end of the day, it's you don't want to extrapolate too much from this one number
right.
as far as China is concerned, right? So,
right.
And also when you think about the December quarter as well versus the December quarter a year ago, the numbers again are the comps are super easy. Our view is they are going to point towards an acceleration in terms of iPhone revenue in the December quarter versus the September quarter because of those easy comps. So again, let's see what the trajectory looks like over the next kind of couple of months.
I was going to say, go through the press release. Pretty basic, pretty forward. I'm not seeing anything about Outlook yet.
We should remind everyone that Apple's fiscal year ends at the end of September, and the December quarter that we're currently in right now, as Angelo keeps referencing, is Apple's first quarter of its fiscal year. Our own Mark Gurman pointing out on our live blog, which I highly recommend, reminding us that it's a huge miss on the Mac, coming in at least $1 billion below expectations. It's no wonder, Mark writes, that Apple pulled every lever it could to get the M3 MacBook Pro and iMac out the door during the holiday quarter. Angelo, what do you make of the $1 billion below expectations when it comes to the Mac, and how important is that category to Apple?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if they're kind of looking to just unwind inventory, and maybe they just weren't kind of pushing kind of sales through anymore ahead of these new product launches. But again, it was an extremely difficult comp as far as the Mac has been concerned, not only here in the September quarter, but over the last year. So now that they've kind of gone through those last four tough quarters, again, you're now going to enter the December quarter where you're lapping essentially a 29% or so decline from a year ago, right, with those new product launches. So it's weak because of those tough comps, we think, as well as the fact that, hey, listen, it's not the most favorable landscape out there for PCs, even though the broader PC landscape appears to have found some sort of footing for the time being. But at the end of the day, the consumer landscape is still very challenging in nature. But again, we want to know more clarity. They're not going to give exact numbers as far as the guidance is concerned. It's only going to be more directional in nature.
Right.
But our view is it's going to be decent, at least for the Mac.
It's funny. Tim and I were just going back and forth because I'm like, wait, they're going to give an outlook, and they don't do that, right? They don't. But you're looking for some commentary. Stock's now down about 0.9% here in the aftermarket. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Angelo Zino, who covers Apple. Apple sales declined for a fourth straight quarter, marking the longest slowdown since 2001 as the company struggles with sluggish demand and a shaky smartphone market in China, specifically. Revenue falling to $89.5 billion in the fiscal fourth quarter. That ended, of course, September 30th. Compared with the average Wall Street estimate of $89.4 billion, Apple did not provide formal guidance for the quarter, sticking with a policy it adopted during the pandemic. It's still a law. I feel like whenever you look at Apple, they still, Angelo, sell so much stuff. But remind us, I mean, everybody has always, for decades, been going after the Chinese market. Our Mark Gurman says China also needs Apple. Apple employs a lot of workers still in China. So that relationship, is this just maybe a slight dip, a 1 quarter dip, or who knows? And I guess that's what we want commentary on. But how do you think about that relationship with Apple? Is it at some point it's going to wind down to some extent, or no?
I mean, we don't think it's going to wind down. I mean, when we kind of forecast Apple in China, at least looking ahead, we're kind of looking for the company to essentially kind of grow in line with the smartphone market in that region. So we're no longer looking for share gain, which is something that they saw, as a significant tailwind over the last 2 years, right? Huawei essentially exits the high end of the market because they can't get their hands on these great chips as far as 5G is concerned. Apple takes a significant amount of share. Now those tailwinds are now gone in our view. So now it's more along the lines of kind of them growing in line with the market, probably at best, to be honest with you, in China. The fact of the matter, though, is the growth story isn't necessarily dead for Apple because they've got such low share in a ton of emerging regions out there, right? India is, of course, a key market out there in growth opportunities for Apple.
How many people in India can afford an iPhone?
Well, not many, but I mean,
that's the question.
When you start thinking, well, there is going to be a wealth effect over the next decade in terms of India, right? I mean, similar to what we've seen in China over the last 2 decades or so. So there is going to be kind of Apple will grow with that region over time. And now our view is they can probably see unit growth of about 1 to 3 percentage points on an annual basis from India alone over the next decade. So we're not necessarily looking for significant kind of growth in any given year out of India, but I think it will be an increasing contributor to Apple's business over time. And I think that is important, right? I mean, what happens with Apple here is they're just so darn big is there's not any single kind of item that's really going to move them noteworthy at this point in time. You can't expect to kind of, if you're an investor out there, don't expect to get 50 to 60% gains on a name like this every single year. That's just not going to happen anymore. You kind of stay in this name because it's a great free cash flow generator. They can continue to see solid earnings growth of, let's say, high single digit, low double digit, annually here over the next kind of 5 to 7 years. And that's why you're invested in this name, not necessarily because of the significant growth opportunities that are attached to them in maybe any specific region.